She had been feeling sick for weeks, until she discovered her billionaire CEO husband was the cause. "Take the medication, Vanessa." The command hung in the air between them, his voice no longer carrying the gentle concern she'd once found so comforting. In that moment, as Dominic Alexander extended the silver tray with 2 innocent-looking pills, Vanessa saw the truth in his eyes. Cold, calculating, and utterly devoid of love. "I'd rather not try something experimental right now," she whispered, her voice barely audible. His smile remained fixed, but something dangerous flickered across his face. "I insist." 3 weeks earlier, she'd have obeyed without question. Now, with her medical test results confirming the presence of heavy metals in her bloodstream, she understood with horrifying clarity. The man she'd married, the pharmaceutical CEO celebrated for saving lives, was systematically taking hers. Have you ever wondered what it would feel like to realize the person who vowed to love you is actually trying to kill you? To discover that every act of care was actually calculated harm? If that thought sends a chill down your spine, give this video a like, because today's story might be the most disturbing tale of betrayal I've ever shared. I'm Mr. Harrison, and this is Timeless Love Tales, where we explore the darkest and brightest corners of the human heart. Today's story is a warning wrapped in a nightmare. A reminder that sometimes the most dangerous predators are the ones who kiss us goodnight. Vanessa stared at the test results in her trembling hands, the clinical language blurring through her tears. Anemia, elevated liver enzymes, traces of heavy metals. The doctor's concerned voice echoed in her mind. These symptoms don't make medical sense together. Have you been exposed to any unusual substances? For weeks, she'd battled mysterious symptoms. Dizziness that made the world tilt without warning. Fatigue that bone marrow deep, hair coming out in clumps when she showered, and a persistent metallic taste that made even her favorite foods unpalatable. At first, she'd blamed stress from her demanding job at the Historical Society. Then she'd wondered if it was early menopause, though at 34, that seemed premature. Now, sitting in her car outside the medical center, a horrifying possibility crystallized in her mind. The timing couldn't be coincidental. Her symptoms had begun shortly after her husband, Dominic Alexander, had returned from his business trip to Singapore. The same husband who had become increasingly controlling after their marriage 3 years ago. The same husband whose first wife had died under mysterious circumstances that were ruled natural causes, after a similar pattern of unexplained illness. Vanessa's phone buzzed with a text from Dominic. "How was your appointment? Coming home soon?" Her fingers hovered over the screen. For the first time in their relationship, she typed a deliberate lie. "Still waiting to see doctor. Tests inconclusive. Might be a while." She started the car with shaking hands. She couldn't go home, not yet. Not until she understood what was happening. Not until she had proof. If her suspicions were correct, every cup of tea, every meal, every vitamin he'd so lovingly prepared during her illness had been slowly poisoning her. The realization struck her with physical force. She had married a monster disguised as a savior, and her time was running out. Dominic Alexander hadn't always seemed dangerous. When they'd met at a charity gala 2 years after his first wife's death, he'd appeared the epitome of the grieving widower who had finally found the strength to rejoin society. As CEO of Alexander Pharmaceuticals, he commanded respect in both business and philanthropic circles, his reputation for developing life-saving medications earning him near-sainthood status in their city. Vanessa had been captivated by his quiet intensity, the way his dark eyes seemed to see through social pretenses to the real person beneath. While other wealthy men at the gala had barely acknowledged her work preserving historical artifacts, Dominic had engaged her in a 2-hour conversation about the importance of cultural memory. "The past shapes us in ways we rarely recognize," he'd said, swirling amber liquid in his crystal glass. "You're a guardian of that influence. It's beautiful work." Their courtship had been swift but not reckless, or so she'd thought. Elegant dinners at restaurants where the staff knew him by name. Thoughtful gifts that showed he'd been listening when she spoke of her passions. A first-edition book on ancient preservation techniques. A delicate jade hairpin from the Ming dynasty that he'd acquired through a collector friend. Conversations that stretched until dawn. where they discussed everything from art to philosophy to their hopes for the future. When he'd proposed 6 months later, presenting a vintage emerald ring that matched her eyes, it had felt like destiny. "This belonged to my grandmother," he'd told her, sliding the ring onto her finger. "She was the strongest woman I've ever known. Until you." Vanessa had cried then, overwhelmed by the sentiment and the beauty of the moment. Now she wondered if those tears had been her intuition's last desperate attempt to warn her. The warning signs had been subtle at first. His insistence on knowing her whereabouts at all times, explained away as concern for her safety. His gradual isolation of her from friends he deemed negative influences, always with a reasonable explanation about their character flaws. His suggestion that she reduce her work hours because you don't need to exhaust yourself anymore. Each control mechanism had been wrapped in concern, each restriction presented as protection. "I worry about you walking through that neighborhood after dark," he'd say when she mentioned meeting a colleague for dinner. "James has always been jealous of successful women," he'd observe after her friend expressed concern about how quickly their relationship was progressing. "You look so tired lately," he'd note, his brow furrowed with apparent concern. "The historical society doesn't deserve your talent if they're working you this hard." By their first anniversary, Vanessa had surrendered her financial independence, moving her modest savings into accounts he managed more efficiently. By their second, she'd reduced her position at the Historical Society to part-time, her world shrinking to the magnificent walls of their Beacon Hill mansion. Now, driving aimlessly through Boston's crowded streets, Vanessa realized how completely he had prepared for this moment, how thoroughly he had ensured she would have nowhere to turn. She pulled into a public parking garage and cut the engine, needing stillness to think. The logical part of her brain, the researcher, the historian, took control. If Dominic was poisoning her, she needed evidence. She needed allies. Most importantly, she needed to survive long enough to escape. Her phone buzzed again, getting worried. "Should I come to the hospital?" The question sent ice through her veins. If he suspected she knew. "No need," she typed back. "Doctor is seeing me now. Just routine tests. Home in an hour." That gave her 60 minutes to formulate a plan that might save her life. If you've ever ignored red flags in a relationship because the good seemed to outweigh the bad, hit that like button. Sometimes our hearts override our instincts, and as Vanessa is discovering, that can be a deadly mistake. Stay with me to see how she fights back against a predator hiding in plain sight. Vanessa's first stop was the public library, where she could use a computer that wouldn't leave a search history on her devices. With trembling fingers, she researched symptoms of various poisons, focusing on those that might cause her specific constellation of symptoms. Heavy metals, arsenic, thallium. The possibilities were terrifying, especially given Dominic's pharmaceutical connections and chemistry knowledge. More disturbing were the cases she found of wealthy men who had poisoned multiple wives, sometimes over years, either for insurance money or simply for the perverse control it gave them. She printed several articles, paid in cash, and tucked them into her purse. Next, she withdrew $500 from an ATM, the maximum daily limit on her personal account. It wasn't much, but it might be enough to disappear for a few days while she gathered evidence. The final stop before returning home was a small pharmacy where she purchased activated charcoal, bottled water, and several over-the-counter medications that might help flush toxins from her system. The elderly pharmacist gave her a curious look but asked no questions. As she drove home, Vanessa rehearsed her performance. She would act normal, tired from the doctor's visit but not suspicious. She would pretend to take any medication Dominic offered but secretly dispose of it. She would collect samples of everything she consumed. Most importantly, she would find proof of what he was doing before confronting him or fleeing. The wrought iron gates of their estate opened automatically as her car approached. The mansion loomed ahead, its Georgian architecture once impressive to her, now menacing. Dominic's Tesla was in the circular driveway, confirming he was home. Vanessa took a deep breath, tucked her purchases into a hidden compartment beneath the spare tire, and prepared to face the man who had vowed to love her in sickness and in health. the man who was now ensuring she remained firmly in the former category. "There you are," Dominic called as she entered the marble foyer. He descended the grand staircase with the fluid grace that had first attracted her, his tall frame impeccably dressed in a charcoal suit despite it being Saturday. "I was about to send out a search party." "Sorry." Vanessa offered a weak smile, allowing her genuine exhaustion to show. The appointment took longer than expected. They ran several tests. Dominic reached her, placing a cool hand against her forehead in a gesture of concern. "You're warm." "What did the doctor say?" "Nothing definitive." She leaned away from his touch, disguising the movement as fatigue. "They're still waiting on some results. Probably just anemia or a vitamin deficiency." His dark eyes studied her face, and for a terrifying moment, Vanessa wondered if he could read her suspicions. Then he smiled, the expression not quite reaching his eyes. "You poor thing. You look exhausted. I've prepared some lunch, that soup you like with ginger and lemongrass. It should help restore your strength." The thought of consuming anything he had prepared made her stomach clench, but she nodded gratefully. "That sounds perfect. Let me just freshen up first." In the privacy of their bedroom suite, Vanessa's composed facade crumbled. She leaned against the bathroom door, breathing deeply to control her panic. The elegant room with its marble surfaces and crystal fixtures had been her sanctuary. Now it felt like a beautiful prison. She splashed cold water on her face and studied her reflection. The changes were subtle but unmistakable. The pallor beneath her olive complexion, the thinning of her once thick black hair, the yellowish tinge to the whites of her eyes. How had she not recognized these as symptoms of poisoning rather than stress or illness? "Because you trusted him," a voice whispered in her mind. "Because he made you doubt yourself." Vanessa changed into comfortable clothes, hiding one of the small bottles of activated charcoal in her pocket. Then, steeling herself, she descended to face her would-be murderer over lunch. The kitchen was filled with delicious aromas, Dominic moving confidently between the professional-grade appliances. This was another change that had seemed charming at first. His insistence on preparing most of their meals himself, claiming it was a way to care for her after her long workdays. Now she understood it as the perfect delivery method for whatever was slowly killing her. Sit," he urged, placing a steaming bowl before her. "You need nourishment." Vanessa settled at the kitchen island, watching as he poured her a glass of filtered water, adding a squeeze of lemon and what appeared to be a vitamin powder. "A little electrolyte boost," he explained, sliding the glass toward her. "Doctor's orders." She nodded, pretending to sip while barely letting the liquid touch her lips. The soup presented a greater challenge. She would need to consume some of it to avoid suspicion. "This is delicious," she murmured after a small spoonful, wondering if she could taste death beneath the complex flavors. "But I'm not very hungry." Dominic frowned, setting down his own spoon. "You need to eat, Vanessa. You're wasting away before my eyes." The irony of his concern might have made her laugh if terror hadn't closed her throat. Instead, she forced down several more spoonfuls, mentally calculating how quickly she could take the activated charcoal once alone. "The doctor mentioned possible anemia," she said carefully, watching his reaction. "He asked about my diet and any medications I might be taking." Something flickered in Dominic's expression, caution, perhaps, or calculation. "Did you tell him about your supplements?" "I mentioned the vitamins you've been giving me." She kept her tone casual. "He wants to review everything I'm taking. Said some supplements can interact badly with each other." Dominic's hand tightened almost imperceptibly around his water glass. "Of course. I'll prepare a list for your next appointment." He paused, then added, "When is that, by the way?" "Monday morning," she lied. "They want to run more comprehensive tests." He nodded, seemingly satisfied. "I'll clear my schedule to take you." "No need," Vanessa said quickly, too quickly. She softened her tone. "You have that important board meeting. I can manage." His dark eyes studied her face for a long moment before he smiled. "Always so independent. It's what I love about you." Once, that smile had made her heart race with affection. Now it chilled her to the bone. After lunch, Vanessa excused herself to rest, locking the bedroom door before rushing to the bathroom. She swallowed the activated charcoal with bottled water from her emergency stash, then carefully collected samples of the soup and the electrolyte drink in small containers she'd hidden in her cosmetics case. Her hands shook as she recorded the date and time on each container. Would this be enough evidence? Who could she trust with these samples? Her mind raced through possibilities. Former colleagues, distant friends, her estranged brother in Chicago. A soft knock at the bedroom door startled her. Vanessa! Dominic's voice was gentle. Are you all right? Just resting, she called back, quickly hiding the evidence. Bit of a headache. I've brought your afternoon medication. It should help. Vanessa froze. She hadn't anticipated this. Being cornered in the bedroom with no way to dispose of whatever pills he was offering. Thank you, she said, moving toward the door. I'll take them with my water in here. I'd rather make sure you're taking them properly, he insisted, his tone still caring but with an undercurrent of firmness. You've been forgetting doses lately. It might explain why you're not improving. The implied threat was clear. Vanessa's mind raced for a solution as she reluctantly unlocked the door. Dominic stood in the hallway, a small silver tray in his hands bearing 2 pills, one white, one pale blue, and a glass of water. His expression was one of perfect husbandly concern. The blue one is new, he explained. Something I've been developing at the lab. It's showing remarkable results for chronic fatigue and immune support. An experimental drug. Untraceable. Perfect for his purposes. That's thoughtful, Vanessa said, accepting the tray. But I should check with my doctor before trying something new, especially with all these tests pending. A flicker of annoyance crossed his handsome features. Vanessa, I'm a pharmaceutical developer. This is literally my area of expertise. The medication is perfectly safe. I wouldn't give you anything that could harm you. The audacity of his lie nearly broke her composure. She forced a smile. Of course, I just meant with the potential anemia, we should be careful about interactions. Dominic's expression hardened almost imperceptibly. Take the medication, Vanessa. The command hung between them, stripping away the pretense of concern. In that moment, Vanessa saw clearly what she had been blind to for so long, the cold calculation behind his attentiveness, the ownership in his gaze. She had 2 choices: obey and buy time, or refuse and potentially trigger a confrontation she wasn't prepared for. Survival instinct won. You're right, she conceded, lifting the pills to her mouth. Through a sleight of hand technique learned during a historical reenactment of Victorian parlor tricks, Vanessa managed to hide the pills under her tongue while appearing to swallow them. She drank the water, thanked her husband, and promised to rest. Once alone again, she spat the pills into a tissue, adding them to her collection of evidence. Then she lay on the bed, mind racing through escape scenarios as she pretended to nap. By evening, Vanessa had formulated a plan. She would need at least 3 days to execute it properly. Time to secure her evidence, contact potential allies, and prepare for a disappearance that might need to be permanent. The challenge would be maintaining the illusion of normalcy while avoiding further poisoning. When Dominic suggested they watch a movie in their home theater, she agreed, feigning improvement after taking her medication. Throughout the evening, she performed the role of recovering wife, accepting small sips of the tea he prepared but never consuming enough to ingest a dangerous amount of whatever it contained. As they prepared for bed, Dominic's phone chimed with a message. His expression darkened as he read it. Problem at the lab, he explained, already reaching for his clothes. A stability issue with the new formulation. I need to go in. At this hour? Vanessa asked, genuine surprise overriding her caution. Pharmaceutical development doesn't keep bankers' hours, he replied with a tight smile. Don't wait up. This could take all night. After he left, Vanessa waited 30 minutes to ensure he wouldn't return for something forgotten. Then she began a careful search of his home office. The room was immaculate, like everything in Dominic's life. Sleek modern furniture contrasted with antique medical texts displayed in glass cases. a collection he'd started after their marriage, claiming her historical interests had inspired him. Now she wondered if those ancient volumes on toxicology and medicinal compounds had served a more sinister purpose. His computer would be password protected and likely encrypted. The filing cabinets contained only legitimate business documents. For 20 minutes, her search revealed nothing incriminating. Then she noticed the slight gap in the wood paneling behind his desk, a seam that didn't quite align. Pressing gently, she discovered a hidden compartment containing a small leather-bound journal. Heart pounding, Vanessa opened it to find meticulous handwritten notes, dosages, compounds, observations, clinical language describing symptoms that matched her own, dates that corresponded exactly with the progression of her illness. But the most horrifying discovery came on the first page, where she found not only her name but another, Vanessa Alexander, his first wife, with similar notations dating back 5 years. The journal slipped from Vanessa's trembling fingers. This wasn't opportunistic poisoning. This was methodical, practiced, and she wasn't his first victim. Fighting waves of nausea, whether from the poison in her system or the horror of her discovery, she couldn't tell. Vanessa photographed every page of the journal with her phone. Then she carefully returned it to its hiding place, erasing all evidence of her search. Back in the bedroom, she packed an emergency bag with essentials and the evidence she'd collected. Tomorrow she would make her move, but tonight she needed to appear to be exactly where Dominic expected her. Asleep in their bed, unaware of the death he was administering in carefully measured doses. As she lay in the darkness, a new thought surfaced through her fear. What if Eleanor hadn't died of natural causes after all? What if Dominic had perfected his technique with his first wife before moving on to her? The question that followed was even more disturbing. If there had been 2 wives, would there eventually be a third? Have you ever had that moment when a puzzle suddenly comes together, revealing a picture far more terrifying than you imagined? If this story has you on the edge of your seat, hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell. You won't want to miss what happens next in Vanessa's desperate fight for survival. Morning came too quickly, sunlight streaming through the bedroom windows as Dominic gently shook Vanessa awake. She hadn't meant to actually fall asleep, but exhaustion had finally claimed her around 3 a.m. "I brought you breakfast," he said, setting a tray beside her. "You were sleeping so peacefully, I didn't want to wake you earlier." Vanessa blinked, momentarily disoriented, then remembered her situation with sickening clarity. On the tray sat a glass of orange juice, 2 pills, and a bowl of oatmeal topped with sliced strawberries and honey, all potentially vehicles for poison. "Thank you," she murmured, sitting up slowly. "What time is it?" "Almost 10. I've been up for hours." Dominic sat on the edge of the bed, watching her with what appeared to be genuine concern. "How are you feeling today?" "A little better, actually." Vanessa forced brightness into her voice. "I think yesterday's medication helped." His smile widened. "Excellent. I told you the new formulation would make a difference." "You were right." She reached for the orange juice, pretending to sip while barely letting it touch her lips. "How was the emergency at the lab?" "Resolved, thankfully. Just a minor stability issue with one of our compounds." He gestured to the pills. "Don't forget your morning dose." Vanessa nodded, employing the same sleight of hand technique from yesterday. "Any plans for today?" "Board reports to review, unfortunately. I'll be in my office most of the day." He stood, straightening his already immaculate shirt. "Will you be all right on your own? I can have Mrs. Winters come by if you need anything." Mrs. Winters was their housekeeper, who came 3 times a week. Vanessa shook her head quickly. "No need. I'm feeling well enough to manage. Might even do some reading in the garden if the weather holds." "Perfect." Dominic leaned down to kiss her forehead, his lips cold against her skin. "Call if you need anything. I'll check on you at lunch." Once he left, Vanessa waited until she heard his footsteps descend the stairs before disposing of the pills and food. She couldn't risk consuming anything he prepared, not even a single bite. Alone in the vast house, she moved quickly. First, she called Dr. Patel, the physician who had run her tests, using the landline in the guest bedroom that Dominic rarely monitored. Dr. Patel's office, a receptionist answered. This is Vanessa Alexander. I need to speak with Dr. Patel urgently about my test results from yesterday. One moment, please. After a brief hold, the doctor's concerned voice came through. Mrs. Alexander? I was about to call you. Your results are concerning. I know, Vanessa said quietly. I need to ask you something important. Could my symptoms be consistent with deliberate poisoning? A long pause followed. That's a very serious question. May I ask why you're considering this possibility? Please just answer. Is it possible? Dr. Patel sighed heavily. Yes, the combination of heavy metals and your symptom progression could be consistent with intentional poisoning. But that's an extraordinary claim that would require. I have evidence, Vanessa interrupted. And I need your help. Can I bring samples for testing? Privately? Another pause. Come to my private practice address at noon. Use the back entrance. We'll talk then. After hanging up, Vanessa made one more call to Professor Abigail Winters, her former mentor at the Historical Society and one of the few friends Dominic hadn't completely severed from her life. Abby? It's Vanessa. I need your help, and I can't explain over the phone. Can you meet me at Riverside Park at 1 o'clock? By the old boathouse. Vanessa? You sound terrible. What's wrong? Please, Abby. It's life or death. I'm not exaggerating. Of course. 1 o'clock. I'll be there. With her appointment set, Vanessa gathered her evidence and emergency bag, hiding them in a tote that wouldn't look suspicious if Dominic happened to see it. Then she showered and dressed, applying makeup to hide her pallor and choosing clothes that concealed her weight loss. At 11:30, she texted Dominic, feeling restless, going for a short drive and maybe lunch out. Don't worry about checking on me. His response came quickly. Are you sure that's wise? You were quite ill yesterday. The fresh air will do me good. I'll take it easy, I promise. Very well. Be home by 3. I have a surprise for you. The last message sent a chill through her. What kind of surprise would a man who was systematically poisoning his wife have planned? Vanessa slipped out to her car, constantly checking to ensure she wasn't being followed. Dominic had installed a security system on her vehicle after their marriage, ostensibly for her protection, but she now suspected it included tracking capabilities. She'd have to abandon the car soon, but for now, she needed its transportation. Dr. Patel was waiting at the back entrance of his private practice, his expression grave as he ushered her inside. Mrs. Alexander, please call me Vanessa. Vanessa, before we proceed, I need to understand exactly what you're alleging and what evidence you have. She placed her samples on his desk. The soup, the electrolyte drink, the pills, even strands of her hair that showed the telltale signs of heavy metal poisoning. I believe my husband is poisoning me, she said simply. And I believe he killed his first wife the same way. Dr. Patel's eyes widened. That's an extraordinary accusation. I know. That's why I brought these. She showed him the photographs of Dominic's journal, watching as the doctor's professional composure crumbled as he scrolled through the images. This is methodical, he finally said. The dosages, the observations. These are not the notes of an amateur. He's a pharmaceutical CEO with a background in chemistry, Vanessa explained. Poisoning would be well within his expertise. Have you gone to the police? Not yet. I needed medical confirmation first. And, she hesitated, I'm afraid they won't believe me. Dominic has connections throughout the city, donations to the police foundation, friendships with several high-ranking officers. Dr. Patel nodded slowly. I understand your concern. I can expedite testing on these samples, have results within hours rather than days. But Vanessa, you cannot return to that house. If your suspicions are correct, you're in grave danger. I know. I have a plan. But I need those test results as soon as possible. I'll call you the moment I have them. Where will you go? The less you know, the better, Vanessa said, rising to leave. Thank you, Dr. Patel. You may be saving my life. Her next stop was Riverside Park, where Abigail Winters was already waiting by the boathouse, her silver hair gleaming in the sunlight. At 65, Abby remained as formidable as when she'd been department chair at the Historical Society. Brilliant, perceptive, and fiercely protective of those she cared about. "My God, Vanessa!" she gasped as Vanessa approached. "You look terrible." "I'm being poisoned," Vanessa said without preamble, sinking onto the bench beside her former mentor. "Dominic is slowly killing me." To her credit, Abby didn't dismiss the claim or demand immediate proof. Instead, she took Vanessa's hand, her grip surprisingly strong. "Tell me everything." For the next 20 minutes, Vanessa explained her situation, the gradual onset of symptoms, the controlling behavior, the discovery of the journal, and her suspicions about Eleanor's death. Abby listened without interruption, her expression growing increasingly grim. "You need a safe place to stay while this is investigated," she said when Vanessa finished. "Somewhere he wouldn't think to look. That's why I came to you. Dominic thinks you're just my former boss. He doesn't know about your cabin in Vermont." Abby nodded. "The cabin is yours for as long as you need it. No one knows about it except my daughter, and she's in Japan for the semester." She reached into her purse, extracting a set of keys. "Take my car too. If he's tracking yours, we can't risk it." "Abby, I can't ask you to." "You're not asking. I'm offering." The older woman's voice brooked no argument. "Switch cars with me now. I'll drive yours home and leave it in my garage. Then I'll get a ride to the cabin tomorrow with supplies." Tears filled Vanessa's eyes, the first she'd allowed herself since this nightmare began. "I don't know how to thank you. Stay alive. That's thanks enough." Abby squeezed her hand. "Now, what else do you need?" "A burner phone. Cash if you can spare it. And..." Vanessa hesitated. "Information about Eleanor Alexander. Anything you can find about her illness and death. Consider it done." Abby stood, her academic's posture straightening with purpose. "Let's switch cars now. You need to be on the road before Dominic expects you home." As they walked to the parking lot, Vanessa checked her phone. 2 missed calls from Dominic and a text. "Where are you?" Called the house, no answer. "Please respond." She typed quickly, "Sorry, phone was in my purse. Having lunch at Riverside Cafe. Heading home soon." His response was immediate. "Stay there. I'll join you." Panic surged through her. "We need to hurry," she told Abby. "He's coming." They quickly transferred Vanessa's belongings to Abby's modest Honda, then embraced briefly before separating. Abby to drive Vanessa's luxury SUV to safety, Vanessa to escape the city before Dominic could find her. As she merged onto the highway heading north, Vanessa's phone rang again. "Dominic." She let it go to voicemail, then turned the device off completely. From now on, she would only use the burner phone Abby had provided. 2 hours later, as Massachusetts gave way to the Green Mountains of Vermont, Dr. Patel called on the burner phone. "The tests are conclusive," he said without preamble. "Significant levels of thallium in all samples, particularly high concentration in the blue pill. This is definitely intentional poisoning, Vanessa. I've documented everything and secured the samples in our medical safe." Vanessa's hands tightened on the steering wheel. "Thallium. That explains the hair loss and neurological symptoms." "Yes, and it's particularly insidious because the symptoms mimic so many other conditions. I've also reviewed the journal photographs more thoroughly. The progression with Eleanor shows the same pattern, starting with small doses gradually increasing. It's methodical. What should I do now?" "I've contacted a colleague at the state police, someone outside your husband's sphere of influence, Detective Sarah Nguyen. She specializes in domestic crimes and will handle this with the discretion it requires. She'd like to meet with you as soon as possible." Vanessa considered her options. She was nearly at Abby's cabin, where she'd be safe temporarily, but she couldn't hide forever. "Tell her I can meet tomorrow. I need tonight to recover and organize my evidence." "Understood. She'll call this number in the morning to arrange details." Dr. Patel paused. "Vanessa, there's something else. I've started treatment protocols for thallium poisoning in my notes. Once you're safe, you'll need chelation therapy to remove the heavy metals from your system. Thank you, Dr. Patel, for everything. Be careful. Men like your husband don't surrender control easily. Those words echoed in Vanessa's mind as she navigated the winding road to Abby's cabin. Nestled among towering pines, the small structure was rustic but secure. Solar-powered, with a wood stove for heat and a well for water. Most importantly, it was unlisted in any property records under Abby's name, instead belonging to a trust established by her late husband. Inside, Vanessa found the cabin simple but comfortable. She locked the doors, drew the curtains, and finally allowed herself to collapse onto the sofa. For the first time in weeks, she felt something close to safe. Her respite was short-lived. The burner phone rang, Abby's number. "He came to my house," Abby said without greeting, her voice tight with tension. "Dominic. He was looking for you." Vanessa sat up straight, adrenaline flooding her system. "What happened? Are you all right?" "I'm fine." I played the confused former boss. Told him I hadn't seen you in months. He didn't believe me at first. Kept looking at your car in my garage. I said I was watching it while you had it serviced. Did he accept that? Eventually. But Vanessa, he was different than I remember. Cold. Calculating. He said something that chilled me to the bone. "What?" He said, "Vanessa doesn't understand what she's doing. Her condition affects her mind. She needs her medication." The way he said it, like you were a disobedient child who needed discipline. Then he left me his card and said to call immediately if I heard from you, for your own safety. Vanessa closed her eyes, imagining the scene. He's laying groundwork. If I go public with accusations, he'll claim I'm mentally unstable from my illness. Exactly. Which is why we need to move quickly. I've been researching Eleanor as you asked. There's something strange in the timeline. According to her obituary, she was ill for nearly a year before her death. But social media posts show her looking perfectly healthy just 2 months before she died. The decline was rapid, just like yours. He accelerated the dosage, Vanessa murmured. Just like he's been doing with me recently. There's more. Eleanor had a sister, Rebecca, who apparently raised questions about the death. She's quoted in a small local paper suggesting the illness was suspicious and convenient. But there's no follow-up story, and I can't find any current information about her. He silenced her somehow, Vanessa said, the realization settling like ice in her stomach. We need to find Rebecca. She might have information that could help build the case. I'm already working on it. In the meantime, rest. Recover your strength. Detective Nguyen will contact you tomorrow, and we'll take the next steps. After hanging up, Vanessa forced herself to eat from the supplies Abby had stocked in the cabin, then took the activated charcoal and other detoxifying supplements she'd purchased. Her body ached with fatigue, but her mind raced with questions and plans. She was just drifting to sleep when the burner phone rang again. An unknown number. "Hello?" she answered cautiously. "Vanessa Alexander?" A woman's voice, professional but warm. "This is Detective Sarah Nguyen, State Police Special Investigations. Dr. Patel asked me to contact you. He said you'd call tomorrow. Plans changed. Your husband just filed a missing persons report, claiming you're mentally unstable and potentially suicidal due to an undiagnosed illness. He's leveraging considerable influence to make this a priority case." Vanessa sat up, fully alert now. "He's trying to find me before I can expose him." "Exactly. Which is why we need to move now. I can be at your location in 3 hours. We'll take your statement, collect the evidence, and place you in protective custody until we can secure an arrest warrant." "How did you know where I am?" "Dr. Patel. Don't worry, this is completely off the record. Only my partner and I know your location." Something in the detective's tone triggered Vanessa's suspicion. "Dr. Patel wouldn't have told you where I am. He doesn't know himself." A pause. Then, "Clever girl, but not clever enough." The voice changed, dropping the professional facade to reveal the cold, precise tones Vanessa knew all too well. "Dominic, how did you get this number?" she whispered, already knowing the answer. "Abigail Winters is quite cooperative when properly motivated. Don't worry, she's unharmed. Physically, at least. Her mental state is another matter. If you've hurt her. Always so concerned about others, even now. His voice carried a hint of advanization beneath the menace. That's what I've always loved about you, Vanessa. Your compassion. Your loyalty. Qualities I'd hoped would extend to your husband. The way Eleanor was loyal before you killed her. A soft chuckle. Eleanor made the same mistake you're making. She thought she could leave, could expose me. She didn't understand what we had built together. You built a lie. You never loved either of us. Love is a childish concept. What we had was deeper, a partnership, a shared legacy. At least it could have been, if you'd simply taken your medication and trusted me. Vanessa's mind raced, trying to keep him talking while she formulated a plan. Why, Dominic? Why poison us slowly instead of just filing for divorce? Divorce is messy, public. It raises questions, invites scrutiny. This way is cleaner. A tragic illness. A grieving widower. Sympathy rather than suspicion. And the life insurance, Vanessa added, remembering the policy he'd insisted they both upgrade last year. A secondary benefit. The primary goal was always control. The perfect exit on my terms. His voice hardened. Now, here's what happens next. You will tell me your location, and I will come collect you. We'll return home, where you'll receive proper medical treatment for your condition. The unfortunate confusion of the past few days will be attributed to neurological symptoms affecting your judgment. And if I refuse, then Abigail Winters will suffer the consequences of your selfishness. And I'll still find you, Vanessa. It's only a matter of time. The threat hung in the air between them. Vanessa closed her eyes, weighing her options. If she revealed her location, she'd be at his mercy. If she refused, Abby would pay the price, and Dominic would likely find her anyway. Unless, I need proof that Abby is alive and unharmed, she said firmly. Put her on the phone. You're not in a position to make demands. I'm not telling you anything until I hear her voice. A pause, then muffled sounds as the phone changed hands. Vanessa. Abby's voice was shaky but clear. Don't tell him anything. The connection cut off abruptly. Then Dominic returned. Satisfied? Now your location. The cabin, Vanessa said, her voice steady despite her racing heart. Abby's cabin in Vermont. But I have conditions. You misunderstand the situation. You don't set conditions. I have the journal, Dominic. Photos of every page already uploaded to a secure server. If anything happens to me or Abby, they go directly to the police, the medical board, and the Alexander Pharmaceuticals board of directors. Another pause, longer this time. What do you want? Release Abby. Now, let her call me from her own phone to confirm she's free and unharmed. And then you'll cooperate? Return home willingly for treatment. Yes. Very well. His tone suggested he was humoring her rather than conceding. Expect her call within the hour. And Vanessa, don't try anything clever. You're not the only one with evidence. Your recent erratic behavior, paranoid accusations, and flight from medical care paint a concerning picture of mental instability. After he hung up, Vanessa moved quickly. She had perhaps an hour before Dominic would expect Abby's confirmation call. Assuming he actually released her, which wasn't guaranteed, she needed to execute her plan now. First, she called Dr. Patel on the cabin's landline, explaining the situation and asking him to contact Detective Nguyen, the real one this time, immediately. Tell her everything, Vanessa instructed. The poisoning, the journal, Eleanor's death. And tell her Dominic is holding Abby Winters hostage while trying to find me. Where are you going? Dr. Patel asked, concern evident in his voice. Somewhere Dominic won't expect. I need to end this on my terms, not his. Next, Vanessa gathered the evidence she'd collected. The samples, the journal photographs, her medical test results, and placed them in a waterproof bag. She changed into warm, practical clothes and sturdy boots, then wrote a detailed letter explaining everything, in case her plan failed. The burner phone rang, Abby's number. Vanessa? I'm okay. He let me go. Abby's voice was breathless, as if she'd been running. But you can't trust him. Whatever he promised. I know, Vanessa interrupted. Are you somewhere safe? Yes, I'm driving to the police station now. Where are you? Not at the cabin. I left as soon as he called. Listen carefully, I've contacted Dr. Patel. He's reaching out to Detective Nguyen. They have all the evidence they need to arrest Dominic. But they need to find him first. And you? Where are you going? Vanessa took a deep breath. To finish this. My way. Vanessa, no. Let the police handle this. He's dangerous. So am I when protecting people I care about. I'll call you when it's over. Vanessa ended the call, then turned off the phone and removed its battery. She couldn't risk Dominic tracking it, and she couldn't risk Abby trying to stop her. Outside, the afternoon sun was beginning its descent behind the mountains. Vanessa placed her evidence bag in Abby's car, then drove down the winding road away from the cabin, not toward the highway as Dominic would expect, but deeper into the forest, toward the one place she knew he would eventually come looking for her. The place where this would end one way or another. If you're wondering how far someone will go to protect themselves from a predator, hit that like button and subscribe to Timeless Love Tales with Mr. Harrison. In our final segment, we'll see just how Vanessa turns the tables on the man who thought he had planned for every contingency, except the strength of the woman he underestimated. The Alexander family hunting lodge stood in a small clearing, its stone and timber structure a testament to old money and older traditions. Unlike the modernized main cabin that Dominic's parents had used for entertaining, this smaller outbuilding had remained largely unchanged for generations. A rustic retreat where Alexander men had planned hunting expeditions and cleaned their trophies. Vanessa had visited only once, during their first year of marriage, when Dominic had brought her to the family compound for a weekend. He'd shown her the main cabin with pride, but had been oddly reluctant to enter the hunting lodge, dismissing it as primitive and hardly worth seeing. Something in his manner had piqued her historian's curiosity, and she'd returned alone the next day while he was on a conference call. What she'd found was a space frozen in time, hunting rifles mounted on walls, antlers and taxidermied heads displayed like conquests, leather-bound logs recording generations of Alexander hunts. But most interesting had been the photographs, yellowed images of Alexander men through the decades, each posed with their trophies, each wearing the same unsettling expression of satisfaction. It's already transmitting to multiple recipients. Dr. Patel, Detective Nguyen, the FDA's Criminal Investigation Division. Even if you destroy this device, they've heard everything. For the first time since she'd known him, Dominic Alexander looked genuinely shocked, his careful control slipping to reveal the rage beneath. You're bluffing. Am I? Check your phone. The signal's been broadcasting since you walked in. He glanced down at his phone, and in that moment of distraction, Vanessa made her move. Not toward the door as he might have expected, but toward the old hunting rifles mounted on the far wall. Dominic recovered quickly, lunging after her. You don't even know if those antiques still work, he snarled, closing the distance between them with alarming speed. I don't need them to work, Vanessa replied, grabbing not a rifle but the heavy iron poker leaning against the wall beside them. I just needed you to think that's what I was reaching for. She swung the poker with all her strength, connecting with his outstretched arm. The syringe flew from his grasp, shattering against the stone floor. Dominic howled in pain and rage, clutching his injured limb. You'll regret that, he growled, advancing again despite his injury. Vanessa backed away, maintaining her grip on the poker. It's over, Dominic. Even if you overpower me now, the police are already on their way. Detective Nguyen has been tracking your phone since you left Boston. You're lying. Check the windows. As if on cue, blue and red lights became visible through the trees, accompanied by the distant wail of sirens. Dominic's face contorted with disbelief, then calculation as he assessed his options. This isn't over, he said, his voice deadly quiet. One way or another, I'll ensure you never testify. You still don't understand, do you? Vanessa kept the poker raised between them. I'm not afraid of you anymore, and I'm not the only one who knows what you've done. The sirens grew louder. Dominic glanced toward the door, then back at Vanessa. For a terrifying moment, she thought he might attack anyway, might decide to kill her before the police arrived. Instead, his expression smoothed into the charming mask she knew so well. "Well played, my dear. I underestimated you." He straightened his jacket with his uninjured arm. "But this is merely the opening move in a much longer game. I have resources you can't imagine, connections in places you don't even know exist." "Save it for your lawyer," Vanessa replied, not lowering the poker until the first officers burst through the door, weapons drawn. "Police! Hands where we can see them." Dominic raised his hands slowly, wincing at the movement of his injured arm. His expression remained composed, confident. A man inconvenienced, not defeated. "Officers, there's been a misunderstanding," he began, his voice smooth and reasonable. "My wife has been suffering from paranoid delusions due to a neurological condition. I've been trying to get her proper medical care." "Save it, Mr. Alexander," interrupted a petite Asian woman in a state police uniform, her badge identifying her as Detective Nguyen. "We have the recording, and Dr. Patel has provided extensive evidence of thallium poisoning, including samples from your home." As the officers handcuffed Dominic, Vanessa finally lowered the poker, her arms trembling with delayed shock and exhaustion. Detective Nguyen approached her, concern evident in her expression. "Mrs. Alexander? Are you all right?" "It's Ms. Richard, actually," Vanessa corrected, watching as Dominic was led outside to a waiting police car. "And no, I'm not all right, but I will be." In the days that followed, the full extent of Dominic Alexander's crimes came to light. The exhumation of Eleanor's body confirmed thallium poisoning as her actual cause of death. A search of Alexander Pharmaceuticals records revealed unauthorized human testing of experimental compounds, with at least 3 other deaths potentially linked to Dominic's research. Most disturbing was the discovery of a hidden laboratory beneath the main family cabin, where Dominic had been developing compounds that would never have passed ethical review. Drugs designed to create dependency, to alter behavior, to control rather than heal. Rebecca, Eleanor's sister, emerged from hiding in Canada, where she'd fled after receiving threats following her public questions about her sister's death. Her testimony, combined with Vanessa's evidence and the company records, ensured that Dominic Alexander would never walk free again. For Vanessa, recovery was a long process. The physical effects of thallium poisoning required months of chelation therapy. The psychological trauma of betrayal by the man she'd loved demanded even more intensive healing. But with each passing day, her strength returned. Not just the health that Dominic had systematically stolen, but a deeper resilience she hadn't known she possessed. 6 months after Dominic's arrest, Vanessa stood before a classroom of graduate students at Boston University, where she'd accepted a position teaching historical preservation techniques. Her hair was growing back, still short but now by choice rather than poisoning. Her complexion had regained its healthy glow. Only her eyes revealed the ordeal she'd survived. Deeper now, more watchful, but also more knowing. "History isn't just about preserving artifacts," she told her students. "It's about recognizing patterns, about learning from the past to protect the future." Sometimes the most important historical evidence isn't in museums or archives. It's in the stories we tell, the warnings we pass on, the red flags we learn to recognize. After class, she met Abby for coffee at their favorite cafe near the Common. The older woman had recovered from her brief captivity with remarkable resilience, though she now carried pepper spray and had installed an elaborate security system in her home. "I saw the news," Abby said as they settled at a corner table. "Alexander Pharmaceuticals is being completely restructured. The board appointed Dr. Lydia Mercer as the new CEO." Vanessa smiled at the irony. "Dominic's intended next victim now runs his company. There's a certain justice in that. She's implementing strict ethical oversight and has established a foundation for victims of pharmaceutical malpractice. Named it after Eleanor. Eleanor would have appreciated that." Vanessa sipped her tea, prepared by her own hands, a simple pleasure she no longer took for granted. "Have you heard about the trial date? Next month. Will you testify?" Yes, for Eleanor, for myself, and for all the women who might have come after me if he hadn't been stopped. Abby reached across the table, squeezing Vanessa's hand. You saved lives, you know, not just your own. We saved lives, Vanessa corrected. I couldn't have done it without you. As they parted ways after coffee, Vanessa walked through the public garden, enjoying the simple pleasure of breathing fresh air without fatigue or dizziness. A young couple passed by, the woman laughing at something her partner said, their hands intertwined with the easy confidence of mutual trust. Vanessa watched them go, feeling not envy but hope. Her capacity to trust had been damaged but not destroyed. Her ability to recognize warning signs had been painfully honed, and her determination to live fully, authentically had never been stronger. The emerald ring that had once seemed like a symbol of destiny was now locked in an evidence locker, its beauty forever tarnished by the truth of the man who had given it. But Vanessa didn't need external symbols to remind her of her worth. She carried that knowledge within herself, hard-won, unshakable, and finally, completely her own. If the story touched you, please hit that like button and subscribe to Timeless Love Tales with Mr. Harrison. Remember, sometimes the most important red flags are the ones disguised as care and concern. Trust your instincts, value your independence, and never be afraid to question behavior that makes you feel diminished rather than empowered. In the comments, I'd love to hear about warning signs you've recognized in your own life, moments when your intuition protected you from harm. Your story might help someone else recognize a pattern before it's too late. This is Mr. Harrison, reminding you that the most powerful love story is the one where you learn to value and protect yourself. Until next time, stay safe, stay aware, and never stop believing in your own worth.